Welcome to another episode of Daddy Confessions. Today, I have with me a returning guest to the Daddy Confessions podcast, old friend of mine. You can tell old friends because they call me BJ and not John. So today, I have with me, returning to the show, my boy Isaac.
Yes. How are you, everyone? My name is Isaac. It is an honor and a privilege to be back. Like I said, I don't know. Mama, we made it because he called us for episode 2. So I must have said something right, but it's an honor and a privilege, BJ. Thank you for having me. I'm just a dad. I'm a dad. My daughter is 6. My son is 2, going on 3. So yeah, Daddy Confessions. Thank you.
Cool, man. Yeah, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you coming back to the podcast. I always say we. It's just me. It's just me. But I appreciate you coming back to the podcast, coming and talking to me again. This time I really want this to be focused on you and your experience as a father. We had a great conversation with Tunde.
Yes.
This is all about you today, my friend. So I got a couple of questions as we talk a little bit. Feel free to, ask any questions to me as well. I want to start off with one that, I try to ask everybody. Like before you got married, or when you and your wife were deciding to get married, did you guys already know that you wanted to have kids?
Yes.
Yes, that was something that was. So you guys had already negotiated that part of the marriage.
We knew children would be a part of the equation. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, did you guys have a hard line on how many kids would be a part of the equation?
No,
we
did not.
And so you have 2 now.
I have 2.
Now, is that it?
That might be it.
That might be it. Woo, that's a soft.
That might be it, BJ. Not to cut you, but multiple reasons as to why that might be it. But
what I'm hearing from you though, if this was spades, that'd be 2 and a possible.
That's But if it was Uno, I'd make you draw 4.
So but it's not like the third child is a far outside chance. Is that?
You know what it is? Given everything that's going on right now between the work schedules and just juggling the 2 that we have, and just a lot of other things, and adding another one right now.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. Willingly adding another one right now, intentionally adding another one right now would just be very, very difficult. Very difficult. Between my wife's schedule, my schedule, our kids' schedule, it would be tough. It would be. So that's why it's a long, hopefully.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that one, man. It is. And people don't realize, I don't know how people do it with more than 2 kids because honestly, it takes, I guess that's why some people have, I don't know, your wife works, right?
Yes, she does.
I guess that's why people end up with stay-at-home parents, right? Somebody's staying at home because at a certain point, you just can't make all the schedules work anymore. The more kids you throw into the mix, right? So,
yeah. I mean, growing up, when me and my siblings growing up, we always had one parent at home.
Mm-hmm.
My dad would work in the morning and my mom would work at night, or sometimes they would switch. My dad would work at night, my mom would work in the morning, just so that there was at least one parent at home. I'm one of 4, so there's 4 of us. So imagine 4 kids unsupervised or left with the wrong person. There's gotta always be somebody there. So that's what we knew growing up, and that's not even in the state of the world that we're in now.
Right.
Like with the economy and everything. So things have changed a lot, but it still kind of remains the same in terms of being able to juggle.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that, man. It's just real, keeping it real. So, if anybody out there is like, you can do it, you can have 4 kids and have a career, or have 9 kids and have a career, come on the podcast and
Please tell me how you do it.
explain to me how you do it.
Yes, please. I'll take notes.
That's right. That's right. So you had the conversation, you knew that you wanted to have kids, you got a boy and a girl. So you pretty much done anyway, right?
I have fulfilled all my debts to society.
Yes, sir. So tell me, Isaac, how would you describe yourself as a parent?
Oh, yeah. I this is a great question. I view myself as a parent in a way that, I'm firm when I have to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm soft when I have to be.
Okay.
You know, um, you know, especially as a Nigerian, with my background, with my cultural background, the way we were brought up, some of our beliefs in terms of how we raise our children. We pretty much come from very, very hard-lined homes in terms of how we were raised, how we were disciplined, and things like that. So a lot of that we do still try to implement in our households, in our homes, now that we're parents. But at the same time, in a way, I feel like my generation, uh, you know, we tend to be softer on certain things because we have that honor of growing up here in the United States and adapting to the system here, and going to school here, and we were basically raised different. So there's a lot more that we understand that our parents never understood. So in terms of how I view myself as a parent, growing up in this country and learning the system of this country, that taught me a lot on how I raise my children and how I, teach them and mold them and educate them and things like that. So again, I'm firm when I have to be, because at the same time, you do have to put that foot down and let them know, like, hey, this is dad. This isn't your friend at school. But at the same time, I'm soft when I have to be, to know that, I'm not alienating them from coming to me or seeing me as someone who they can come to talk or any other thing like that.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very fine line in terms of that balancing act, but I think I do it pretty well.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
And so what does that look like between you and your wife? Is your wife, would you say that she's more of the the hard line person, or are you more of the hard line person? Or how do y'all balance that out? How do y'all balance that out?
Funny enough, I think we're both. She's definitely a hardliner when she has to be, but she does it in her own way. She has her own style. And like I said, I'm hard and I'm firm when I have to be, and I have my own style.
Mhm.
But it all, kind of adds up into a perfect potpourri blend of parenting, if that makes sense, right? Because there's a way that she would, she gets her point across and her message across, and the kids respond to it. And then there's a way I get my message across, and the kids respond to that. Like, for example, with my daughter and my son, I don't even have to say a word. I give them a look. They know what it is, right? Whereas sometimes my wife, she got to say, hey, she actually has to become vocal,
Right.
and then they'll respond.
Right.
So at the same time, we achieve the same effect, just we take different routes to get there.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a very, mixed approach, but it's effective.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Cool. I mean, that's I feel like that's similar to how it is in our house.
Yeah.
I find myself being more of the stringent parent more often than not.
Yeah.
I think my wife likes to be the fun parent, but we make it work. We make it work.
Hey, like I said, there has, but you know what it is, BJ. There has to be. Think about it like this. You know that saying where they say opposites attract,
Mm-hmm.
right? Imagine if two parents were the same exact way.
Yeah.
Would that message be received by the kids?
No, it'll be something would get lost in translation, right?
Exactly.
Because you don't even know what way your kid learns until they start
Exactly.
to grow, right? So
Yeah.
if you both the same, you might be talking in a way that your kid doesn't even.
They will never comprehend.
Right.
No matter what. Exactly.
Right. So I hear that. So let me ask you this. So, you guys almost 6 year old and a 2 year old, 2.5 year old, right? A little bit more than a 2.5 year old now. And so you guys have been doing this for a little while now. You've been parenting for a little while now. You've been looking at each other like, what are we doing here? How did this happen? What is going on with these kids? We're doing a great job. We're doing a bad job. Whatever it is, those conversations that you guys are having. What are some things that you wish you knew about parenting before your first kid was born?
Wow. Whew. Another loaded question. I would say, you really don't know until you have to do it. That like, it's one thing when you're the kid and you have your mom or your dad, and you're the child and your parents are there, they're taking care of you, they're doing it. Now you grow, you now establish your own family, but you never really know what to expect in terms of what type of a parent you're going to be, or what to do as a parent until you actually have the child. I refer to it as it's a college without graduation. There's no graduating this course at all, because it's something that continuously will evolve, no matter how, for the duration of the lifespan of your children.
True.
Because they're going to go from stage to stage to stage, and you actually have to evolve with them in order to parent them effectively, hence why there's no graduation. So I would say, honestly, I really didn't know what to expect until I became a parent. And it's like you got to learn on the job. I mean, you do have examples because you know how your parents were with you,
Right.
and that's really all you have on going in. You're like, you know what? My dad was like this, my mom was like that, but together they were both like this. And some of the things you like, you say, you know what? I'm gonna be like that with my children. Some of the things you don't like, you're like, you know what? I'm definitely not doing this with my kids, right? But you still don't know until the child comes, and then you find that niche, and then you say, okay, this is my lane in terms of what I took from my mom, what I took from my dad, and what I would like to implement as a dad, right? Or as a mom.
Right.
So it's like, again, perfect blend of so many different things, but you never really know until you actually are in it, before you can. It's on the job training, essentially.
Yeah, that's 100% true. I mean, it is on the job training, or on the job mess up, not train. There's no training, right? There's a lot of books for this, but not all kids are the same.
Not all kids are the same.
So understanding what your individual child needs is a really important thing that you need to spend time figuring out. Okay, who is this child? What do they need from me? Right.
Exactly. The personalities, they're so different, again, and that's going to vary based on the amount of kids. I have two. My son and my daughter are completely different people. My son has his tendencies, my daughter has her tendencies. So being able to understand, like you said, know and understand each child, lends credence to how you parent, both individually and collectively. So, yeah.
So this is Daddy Confessions, right? The idea behind this podcast is that we just I want to talk about parenting from a father's perspective. So as a father, obviously, this is your perspective. But my question to you is, what are some things that you are most concerned about in terms of raising your children as a father?
Whew. I would say, honestly, seeing the way the world is right now. What are we? Are we in Gen Z? They call it, right? Gen Z.
I don't know. I can't
Yeah,
keep. Yeah.
we think it's, I don't know, Gen X, Y, Z, something, whatever we have.
Right.
But either way, the way the world is right now, and seeing that I'm a parent of young children, young Black children for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things you just have to be concerned about. And your job, my job is saying, how do I bring these children up in a way that will ensure that they're still going to be here? And I mean that in so many different ways.
Right.
You know, not to get political, but young Black children are getting shot for no reason, right?
Right.
You know, kids are committing suicide at such a drastic rate, from being bullied in school for either what they have on or what they don't have, or, things of that sort, self-esteem issues, and all of these things. Kids are just running and flocking towards drugs and alcohol and all this. So there's just so many deterrents, and you're just like, wow. When I was growing up, I mean, yes, these things were still there, but it wasn't at such an alarming rate. We
Right.
actually remember playing with our friends and going home when the lights went down, and went out, and being able to talk to our parents and things of that sort. Now, it's complete detachment. Everybody's in their own world, and nobody talks to anybody. Video games are basically raising children. Social media is conditioning the minds of these children. And so there's just so many things. So my greatest concern is, I just want to know that I did a good job, because you don't know what's going to happen in 5, 10, 20 years in terms of how these kids are going to turn out. You've
Yeah.
seen all that, because again, truth be told, we're not with them 24/7. They go to school, they're in daycare, they have friends, they pick up things, they learn, they imitate, and you just want to say, God, I hope these children don't bring something home that I can't break, or I can't get them to, put out, and yeah, those to me are just like the greatest concerns based on the current time that we live in.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. So let's talk a little bit about what life was like. And I know, everybody not talking about COVID no more, right? We kind of moving away from COVID,
Yeah.
but you got a COVID baby. Tell me
Mm.
tell me what was it like raising your kids during COVID?
Ooh, man, that was tough. A lot was happening around that time. My son was actually born this September. So what? Lockdown. We actually went into quarantine in March of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
My son was born in September of 2019. So that's what, maybe what, 6 months?
Yeah. Yeah.
About roughly 5, 6 months.
Like everybody was holding the baby,
Yeah,
baby,
yeah.
and then you like, back
So
off me.
it was difficult. And then, around that same time was when we closed on our home,
Mm.
purchasing our home. So you go from having literally a newborn, 3, 4, 5 month old, right, to having to, your clothes on your home, you have to move, you gotta, and then the whole world shuts down.
Right.
So that means kids are home, you're home, you're trying to figure out work life balance, work life situations. How am I gonna work with these kids here? How am I gonna? So there was so much going on, but luckily, for us, my daughter's school at the time, or her daycare at the time, they actually were open.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they were open, and they were like, hey, listen, we're not every day. They spent a lot of money. They would hire a professional sanitation company to come and sanitize the building, everything, and I'm talking about, people now do it, what, once a month or twice a month. They were doing it every day,
Yeah.
right? To ensure that everything was healthy, was sanitized, and to mitigate the chances of your children, catching something and bringing it home. So that actually helped a lot because a lot of kids were still not going. So it was only my daughter and maybe two other people, two other people, which was good. It actually did give us a break. So, but in still with trying to manage them in the pandemic at the same time, it was tough because there was, the world was shut down. There was nowhere for you to really go, right? You couldn't take them you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to the park, you can't go, so many things like your typical way of life was just taken away from you. So, you just had to figure out innovative ways to keep them entertained while dealing with everything else that was going on. And that's pretty much what we did, like we took them to the backyard and we invested so much in outdoor activities and trying to keep them engaged, or, seeing that our options were extremely limited.
Right, right. Now, obviously, things are better now, right? The world is opening up. We're in a kind of different place. I mean, some people have had COVID several times. Uh, you've been vaccinated, you can still get COVID, all that kind of stuff, right? But tell me, outside of COVID, so let's put COVID to the side for a second.
Yeah.
What would you say has been one or two things that has that have worried you most, or that you find that worry you in raising your kids?
I would say, just that fear of not knowing what might happen every given day.
Hmm.
You know, let's just, what it is. We live in a world right now. You nobody is certain of anything anymore
Right.
in the world we live in, right? It's like, especially as a parent, it's like, child abductions are at an all-time high.
Hmm.
It's like you send your kid to school, you send your child to school, to daycare, whatever, and then there's a possibility that they might not come back.
Right.
And that not because of anything of your doing, but it's almost like just the way of the world that we're living in. It's like you don't know what can happen at any given time. So to me, I would say that's the biggest fear. And we are a spiritual family, and we do pray, and we do say, we do commit these children into the hands of God every day, because hey, we're not the ones controlling ourselves,
Right. Right.
there is a higher power watching over us. And you know my biggest fear, again, not to make it political or religious or anything like that, but my biggest fear was just not knowing what might happen.
Mhm.
Because again, my kids are young, very young, and this is the age where a lot of these children go missing for days, weeks, months, sometimes permanently. So having that fear of, hey, are they even gonna be? Am I even gonna see them
Right.
tonight? That to me is the biggest worry. So every day they come home, I always make sure I give them the biggest hug, I give them the biggest kiss, and I say, hey, and I'm just grateful and I'm thankful that I have them. Somewhere in this country today, somebody woke up with their child, and right now their child is missing.
Right.
You understand? So
And that's a tough thing to live with, right? Like,
yeah,
to understand that you are the parent and you can't protect your child,
you can.
and that
Exactly.
you try to do everything you possibly can, and somehow, some way,
You're rendered helpless.
yeah, yeah, that's tough. And that's, obviously, that's one of, not obviously, but it's one of my worries as well. Like, I worry about that often, like, you know is this, and I don't worry about it from the perspective of, they're gonna walk outside and they're not gonna come back.
Yeah.
Worry about, am I did I tell them that I love them that day?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
do they understand? Do they know that no matter what, their parents.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And those are the kind of things that I think about often as well. 'Cause I think those are, so it's very valid worry, valid concern as a parent. So, I guess I got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
And I really just want to kind of end on a happy note, right? So, what has been your favorite part so far of being a parent?
Income tax time. And I'm being dead serious. I'm not even gonna mince words. Income tax time is the best. When we file and that check comes, it makes it all worth it.
Man, well,
income tax time. No, I mean, again, I'm just, I'm being funny, but for me, that is a part of it, though. For real, though, part of it. But for me, the best part is just knowing that your children, respect and admire you, right? So I can't picture a world where, my kids don't worship the ground I walk on as their dad, right? That would break my heart because I know that I do. I'm not even, first and foremost, as a parent, it takes a significant amount of sacrifice to even be a parent,
right?
Because you have to put aside your wants, your needs for the sake of your children. I always tell people, if you are not ready to sacrifice, you're not ready to be a parent. Any man can father a child, but if you're putting your needs and your wants over your children, you're not ready to be a parent. I'm sorry, that might hurt some people, that might offend you, but I don't care. It's just the truth. Being a parent it requires such an intense level of sacrifice, because you have to get to the point where you got to realize you're not living for yourself anymore. You're living for your children. BJ, your boys. You're living for your boys. Anything can happen to you, God forbid. But God forbid nothing happens to the boys.
Right.
You understand? Because then it'll hit you different. So to me, the hardest part, I want to say not the hardest part, but the best part is, the hardest part is knowing that, giving all that I sacrifice for my kids. I work very hard, to provide a very decent lifestyle for my children. They want for nothing, they lack nothing. But then knowing that all of that, is unappreciated, or they don't value it, or they don't see that all I'm doing is for them. That to me would be the hardest thing for me to swallow. Thank goodness I don't have that problem, because my children, the relationship I have with them, both individually and collectively, is, it's so strong. It's like when I'm not around, I'm like, where's dad? Where's dad? Dad, my kids love my wife and I immensely, and to me that makes everything worth it. So if, God forbid, I ever get to a place where they don't value me or value what I do for them as a dad, that definitely might be the hardest thing for me.
I hear you. I feel you on that one. That's really important piece, being able to have that connection with your kids, where you can, you look at them and they're like, oh, well, daddy said this, or mommy said that, or they kind of hang on your every word, good and bad, and and that they that they look to you to give them guidance on what they should do next, and at some point that's going to change. But what you want to do is really create an environment where you can try to limit that as much as possible, right? Where they feel comfortable enough bringing things to you and talking to you, and that your opinion matters
absolutely
so much to them.
Yeah.
That, even when you're not saying anything, they hear your voice.
That's a fact. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, I love that. I love that a lot. That's fantastic. So, one last thing. I always try to ask dads when they come on here if there's any nugget of information they would like to share with, possible fathers, fathers to be, people who've been, who just don't know what they're doing with their kid, whatever. Any nuggets of fatherhood, of parenting that you want to share with the listeners out there.
Yeah. To me, I would say the two most important pieces of advice I would give. Number one, I already, spoke a little bit about it, is just make sure you're ready. Make sure you are in the perfect place. Well, not the perfect place, because we're never going to be in the perfect place in life, but make sure you're in a good space where you're ready to be a parent. Like I said, any man can father a child,
Right.
but not every man is cut out to be a dad. You understand? Being a father is one of the most sacred gifts that is entrusted to a man. And if you're not ready to take on that mantle, then you might as well just not even bother, because, the expectation it's a lot to live up to.
Right.
So, to me, I would say the first thing is just make sure you're ready. Make sure you're in a good space. And what do I mean by that? Again, sacrifice. If you're not ready to sacrifice, because again, you're going to make money, right? But your child is going to need diapers. You're going to need baby formula. You're going to need braces. You're going to need all these things that come with the package. And guess who's funding that? You are, right? So if you're trying to put your PS5 and your rims above your baby formula and your diapers, unfortunately, you're not ready to be a parent. You're not ready to be a father. So again, sacrifice. That's the first thing.
Kids gonna need a lot of shoes.
A lot.
A lot of.
A lot. And just wait till their feet keep getting bigger.
That's right. That's
right. So that's the first thing. Then I would say the second thing is, again, I'm gonna go left with this, but I feel it's very important for everybody who's listening to be able to think about this. Also, take into consideration who you have children with.
Mm.
A lot of times, you see, again, people, I know this is a PG show, so I'll keep it PG, but a lot of times, a lot of people don't seem to take into account who their partner
down with.
is.
Right.
Because remember, it takes two to tango, right? How many chromosomes are in the human body, right? I believe is what, 42, 20, what, 46? Is it 46?
You're asking me science.
Yeah, 23 from you, 23 from her.
So 40, right? I think you're right. I think
46, right?
Yeah.
I think that's 7th grade, 8th grade. Right? So half of that human being is you.
Right.
And half of that human being is your spouse or your mate or your partner. So, a lot of times people don't take into account, who am I having children with? Study that person. Do you like the traits of that person? Do you like the personality? Do you love that person? Do you not like that person? Are you attracted to that person? Do you see yourself having, there's so many different questions that we can ask ourselves. One can ask themselves about who it is that they're choosing to procreate with, right? But a lot of times I feel like those questions get negated because, for the immediate pleasure of having a child. And then next thing you know, they regret it down the line. And what was that Kanye line? 18 years. Right? Something like that. So
look at him.
Exactly. Right? So that to me is the two most important things. Again, one has to reflect within themselves and say, hey, am I ready to be a father? Am I ready to sacrifice my wants, my needs for said child? And two, okay, this person who I've chosen to procreate with, do I feel good about them? Do I feel like they would make an adequate partner for us to parent a child with? You know? So I think if people took the time to really answer those questions, really, really take a deep dive and intricately talk within themselves and ask themselves these questions, a lot of things would be different in terms of how, children, are, not just conceived, but how they're brought up and, raised. And it goes, it's, to me, it's like a domino effect,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's interesting because I've been thinking a lot lately about that exact idea, right? Like how people end up, raising kids or not raising kids, and what happens to those kids when they're in situations that are not good ones, right? When when you have a parent who's not engaged, when when you have two people who shouldn't have had a kid together because they can't stand each other. So, when you have parents who have kids and absolutely neglect those kids just off rip, like everything that they do is not even they selfish, right? So they are more selfish than selfless, and so they don't even consider the need of the child at all, right? And so all of those kids, all of those situations where a child is brought into the world and not the parents are not able to or willing to give themselves fully to raising that child, you can see it in the children who are, having trouble in school. You can
The effects. Yep.
and you can see it in the kids who are unfortunately end up incarcerated in some situations. You can see it in the unfortunately the women who end up on the street sometimes, right? Like people who end up on the street is just it's bad situation after bad situation because we are not ready to do our part as parents, right? We go through the process of procreating, but we are not ready to help that little person be able to live in society. We're not ready in that little person for the world, right? It's like, you think about animals that bear their kids, then the kids just get up and run off on their own, right? That ain't how humans work. We can't even walk, right? So we need somebody to take care of us, right? And
Absolutely.
so because of that, when we don't get that, when we're not taken care of, that's when you see people go absolutely in the wrong direction.
Yep.
Well, Isaac, man, thank you for this. Thank you for chatting with me. This has been awesome. Always love connecting with you, man. This is we don't do this enough.
We don't.
We might do it. We might do it some more for sure.
For sure.
Maybe even I'm thinking about it. I haven't. This might be the first time I say it out loud. Maybe doing some lives with some people, getting some people on and just having some chats or whatever. So I'll definitely keep you in mind if that ever comes along. You let me know how you feel about that. Anything else you want to say to the people before I let you go?
Hey, guys, I know we definitely touched on a lot, but again, it's not all morbid, right? Being a parent is actually pretty fun. It's cool. It's cool. I think BJ, you can attest to this. I'm enjoying it because you actually learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
So don't think of it as a burden. Don't think of it as as some sort of a shackle. It's really not. It's actually one of the best experiences of my life because I've learned so much about myself, in being able to father these two children that I myself wasn't even aware of that, I had these abilities and things of that sort. So it's actually a very, 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 self awareness reflection kind of thing where you learn so much about yourself, and you actually enjoy it. You enjoy the process. If you're fully committed, if you're fully dedicated, it's really not bad. So I don't want everyone to kind of have the wrong idea or wrong impression. I know we said a lot during this episode, but it's actually pretty fun. It's pretty cool, and you just have to make it your own. Establish that relationship with your kids. Once you get that relationship established with them early, and it's really an enjoyable experience. So I just don't want anyone to kind of get the wrong idea, like, oh my god, oh my god.
Oh man, you're right. You're right. I love being a dad. I love
I
being.
love it too. I enjoy it.
It's absolutely it's the most fun in my life right now for sure.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, probably even I wasn't like you. I wasn't out in the streets like you was before you hit me.
You listen, man. I was roaming the block. But but again, it's funny you said that, because I'm just gonna add this last point before we go. But again, it comes down to that word, that sacrifice. If I had a pretty good life. I enjoyed my single years, right? My pre-years before being a dad. But when you choose to grow in this element, in this manner, you're gonna have to put some of those things. You gotta say, well, do I really enjoy having a good time and going out more than? And if you do, then again, unfortunately, I'm sorry, you're not really ready to be a dad, because the level of sacrifice that has to be given, you just can't even think about. So it just kind of comes back full circle. But again, it's not that bad. It's really a fun experience, and I enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, Isaac, man. Thank you so much for being here, for talking to me. For all those nuggets of truth and important information for all the parents out there. I really do appreciate that, man.
Don't forget the income tax too.
Don't forget the
income tax now.
He making it sound real good,
boy. Woo, the IRS be looking real nice.
Man, keep that in mind for sure. And for all you all listening to Daddy Confessions, thank you as always. You all make this work. We really do appreciate it. And Isaac, again, thank you, sir, for being here.
Pleasure.
Yeah, man. And love you guys. Tune in as always. Catch Daddy Confessions on everything, on all your podcast apps. Peace.